cart that doesn't work, a damsel in distress, part 2. Welcome to 316 Automotive. I'm your host, Maury Thibodeau. My buddy Pat Mackey is in there taking the motor apart, and we're going to have to do it the hard way and get that intake valve freed up from all the carbon. So, here we go. The situation is that the intake valve is so crudted up. We've done several applications of cleaning solutions, various things that you can get on the market, and none of them have worked. And so the intake valve was literally jammed up with crud, with carbon buildup, and so now we got no choice but to take the head off and mechanically clean the intake valve, take it all apart, and yeah, we're going to take that. Yeah, that's got to come off. The shroud's got to come off. We got everything. Yeah, the muffler. Yep, got to do that too. All right, so we're gonna show you that, and all right, I'm gonna show you. You see here, this is the intake valve, and we've already taken the push rod out, but the intake valve is jammed because of the carbon that's on the stem, and so the exhaust valve is okay because that heats up and that doesn't get any carbon buildup. So now we're at the point we physically got to take this thing apart. So we got to take the head off and then disassemble that and get all the carbon off, and then mechanically, and then we'll come back.
We already took the push rod out. That's why the rock
right. Yep, push rod's already out. Okay, you better do the exhaust. Okay, we got the muffler off. There's the exhaust valve. It looks pretty clean. So, but the intake valve's a problem. Okay, we just took off the head bolts here. You can see those are 14 millimeter, and they were tight. And the head, the upper part of the head, this part of the head here, separates from the lower part of the head, which is right here, right at a seam right in there. You can't see it. Oh. All right, don't. We need to.
We gotta push it all the way down.
Yep, we need to. What we're gonna do is we're gonna roll the piston down to the bottom half there, and then we can take off the upper. Woo!
Got one. Goes in there.
Yep, put that back.
Got it.
We can tap it down.
There we go. That's good. And that's the boogered up valve.
All right, guys, here we are. We're not at the airplane repository anymore. That's the lady that has all the Beechcraft, Beech 18s, and she sells them all over the planet. Parts and fuselages and wings and you name it, landing gear. Anyway, we got the intake valve off right here. There it is right there. And the exhaust valve moves very well. Just in and out, real easy. This thing here, we had to fight to get this thing out because it's going into the valve guide with all that smegma right here, and it's increased the diameter vis-a-vis the valve guide right there, and so we had to fight to get this thing out, but now we've got it out. We got the little spring clip and things of that nature and that booger. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to mechanically clean this on the wire wheel, and then we're going to do some kind of soaking of this and then see how it goes. So I'll let you know about that. Soaking with I don't know. Okay, here we are soaking in the Techron. The valve is in there and everything else is right there. I've plugged up the holes, and we're going to get this thing clean and then we'll reassemble it. Okay, here's the valve. It's been soaking for about 12 hours or so, and now what I'm going to do is I've got some steel wool and I've got some Scotch-Brite here, and I got it in my drill, and I'm just going to spin this thing and get it going. right. As you can see, the lower portion here was all caked up with carbon. We've been trying to soak it off and did some last night, but now mechanically we removed everything and cleaned the whole valve stem. And now the whole valve is decarboned, and we're going to put it back. We're going to scrub out the valve guide, because right here is where it was binding up. It literally stopped moving up and down. The cam would push it, and then that was where it would stay. The spring could not return the valve. So, and but the exhaust valve is fine. That thing moves. That's great. It's got no carbon on it. We looked inside. It is great, because that one gets a lot hotter. So the intake valve stays relatively cool. So we're going to put this back now. After it's lubricated, we're going to clean out the intake valve guide and go on. Here's the exhaust valve, and it's got some buildup on it. I'll clean that off. Not near as bad as the intake. And to note here, I got the retainer off of the spring, and the valve just dropped right out of the head. So there was no binding whatsoever, as opposed to the intake valve where I had to tap it out with a hammer, because even with the retainer off and the spring off, she wasn't going anywhere. So this one's pretty good, but we're still going to clean it up. Okay, here's the head after we cleaned out the exhaust, and you can see right here the exhaust valve drops right in, whoop, just like that. And so, and the exhaust valve looks good. See right there. I'm going to put a little, of course, put a little assembly lube on there when I put it back together. But now things are cleaned out pretty darn well. I want to show you something interesting here. On the interweb, I pulled up the exploded view of the valves and the whole engine actually. But here's the intake valve, and you can see right there, number 13 is the valve seal, and then the rocker arm and everything like that. And you come down to the exhaust here, and you can see there is no valve seal between the valve and the spring. 3 and 5 there, but up here on the intake, between 2 and 5, is the valve seal. That's interesting.
That's nothing new.
And then of course you go over here,
said it was a great invention
and you
20
can
years
see
ago. Now it seems
number
outdated.
2 right there.
Yeah,
Those are the
replaced by
valve
liquor
guides that are
distributors
pressed
all over
into
the
the
street.
head.
It never did what it should.
Here's the exhaust valve. Floats up and down the guide. I've got oil on it, so it does well. All right, here's the exhaust valve, and here's the intake valve. This is the one that was giving us the problems.
Bottom.
Okay, here we go. We don't have it hooked up yet, but we got the head on the motor, and if you can look down in the spark plug hole, you can see the piston disappearing and then coming back up, and it's not binding up, so we are good to go in that regard. You're not going to see the valves move yet because we don't have the push rods in. We got to torque the head down, 4 places, and then we'll get there. Okay, we got the push rods in right there and right there, and then what you do on the valve here for set the valves, you need about 4 thousandths, and so I got a 4th thou feeler gauge there. You crack open the lock nut right there and there, and then you back off the adjuster screw right there and there, and then you stick your gauge in there, your 4th thou feeler gauge, and then you come back finger tight with the adjuster screw, and so you got drag on the feeler gauge, and then you come back and put your wrench on the nut. That's a 8mm, I think, and then you honk it down, you tighten it down, and you're still going to have a little bit of drag on the feeler gauge, but that's all right. And you do that to both sides, and now you can see I got a little bit of, got a hair of movement, which is about 4th thou, and that's what we want. That's how you do it.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Better go out.
Beautiful, Clark. Woo! Okay, we just got done putting everything together. Let's fire it up, Hoss, and see what it does. You got the choke on? Woo! It's running all right. Oh, don't hit the car. Nose Dragon Beach 18 there. All right, so that's it for this episode of 316 Automotive. We got the cart going again, the Yamaha G23A cart going again. And we had to pull apart the motor to clean out the intake valve, and it was all gummed up. And so now she's running good. Hopefully we won't be back for a long time on this one, but you never know. These valves do gum up. This is Maury Thibodeau and Pat Mackey and Miss Jan signing off.